Welcome to everybody that's viewing, and welcome to all gallery members. Thank you for coming to the November 12th regular council meeting. I now call the meeting to order at 1 p.m. and I would ask council if they have any added items to the agenda. Thank you very much. Seeing none, we'll go to item B, please, for adoption of the agenda as presented. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I make the motion that council adopt the regular council meeting agenda for Tuesday, November 12th, 2024 at 1 p.m. as presented.
Thank you, council members. I will now call for the vote. Those in favor? That's carried. Moving down now to the adoption of previous minutes. I'm looking for consent for all items. So we'll start with 2A number 1, regular council meeting minutes for October 15, 2024. We have consent? Thank you. We have consent for the October 15th, 2024 meeting. We will now move down to item 2, annual organizational meeting minutes, October 28, 2024. Consent? We have consent for October 28, 2024. And finally, our special closed council meeting minutes, November 1st, 2024. Very good. November 1st, 2024 minutes are also passed by consent. Thank you, council members. We will move down to the bylaws, number 3 in your agenda, page 21, item 3A. Okay, so page 21. This is a public hearing, and at this time, I'll call Mr. Sloan up to the podium to introduce the bylaw for the public hearing.
Thank you, Mayor and Council.
You're introducing the bylaw, and then I go into public hearing. Is that correct? Is that what you've done for us in the past? No?
I feel like we may have done a couple of different orders.
Okay. Well, then I would prefer as well then to go right into a public hearing. So you're welcome to stay there if you like. We'll try and stay consistent for the future. We will now be going into a public hearing to consider bylaw 2024-39 land use bylaw. At 1:03, I declare the public hearing open, and now ask our development officer to explain the purpose and effect.
Thank you, Ken. Bylaw 2024-39 is an amendment to the land use bylaw at the location of 4818 51st Street. This parcel is owned by the town. It is the former municipal operations shop, currently zoned I-1 or light industrial. The East Olds area redevelopment plan that it is located within identifies the property as being zoned for mixed-use development in the future land use concept. The proposed bylaw amendment here would rezone the property to central commercial, which is a land use district that allows for this type of development, and would bring the property into alignment with the redevelopment plan. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm looking now to the gallery to ask if there's anyone present for this public hearing, for this bylaw. Seeing none, we have no presentations to go through. I'm going to move down and ask my council if they have any comments or questions. We have none. Would you like to make any final comments, Mr. Sloan?
I will just comment that this bylaw, or the notice of the public hearing, was posted in the newspaper on the October 29th and November 5th issues of the Albertan newspaper, and it was circulated to 8 neighboring property owners. Well, we didn't receive any correspondence for or against. We did receive one inquiry from a neighboring property owner, the church that is just to the north across the lane. Just curious about the type of development that this zoning change could allow. So we had that discussion, but we didn't receive any concerns from them on this.
Thank you for sharing those comments. This was our municipal land use planner, Mr. Sloan. If there's no further questions from council, I will then declare the public hearing closed at 1:05 p.m. And I would ask council to direct your attention, please, back to page 21. And I'm looking for a motion for second reading. Please, Councillor Ryan.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I move that bylaw 2024-39 be given second reading as presented.
Thank you, Councillor Ryan. I'll call for the vote. Those in favor? That is carried. And for third and final reading, Councillor Walsh.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that bylaw 2024-39 be given third reading as presented.
Thank you, Councillor Walsh. I will call for the vote. Those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Page 25, please, of your agenda now. Item 3B. We'll go into another public hearing at this time for bylaw 2024-41. I call the public hearing open at 1:06 p.m. And I ask the development officer to explain the purpose, please, and the effect.
Thank you again. Bylaw 2024-41 is also an amendment to the land use bylaw. This was received as an application from the property owner to rezone the parcel with the civic address 5402 50th Street from R1, low density residential, to R3, medium density residential. The municipal development plan identifies this land as remaining residential in the future, but it does not specify a certain district or density for this parcel. There is no redevelopment plan in place for this area. The subject parcel is located in an area that has quite a range of different zone land use districts already. To the east, there's an existing R3 parcel. There are R2 parcels to the south and to the north. There are highway commercial parcels to the north, and then the remainder is R1. There's, like I say, there's already a mix in the area, and with no redevelopment plan in place to guide recommendations on this, and looking at the existing land use districts, it is appropriate, administration thinks it's appropriate to consider this rezoning. This bylaw received first reading on October 15th, and notice of the public hearing was advertised on the website and in the October 29th and November 5th newspapers. It was circulated to 7 neighboring property owners, and we have not received any correspondence regarding this rezoning. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sloan. I will once again ask the gallery if there are any people that wish to speak for or against this bylaw. Seeing none, I will now move to my council for comments or questions. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I just have a question for the development officer, if he's able to share, or if he knows. So it appears from the picture there's a building there now. Do you know, can you comment? Do you know, is the plan to raise that building and erect a new structure, or are you able to comment?
Yeah, the landowner does have an interest in redeveloping the property for more residential. They would like to do more than a duplex there, which R2 would allow. So that led them to applying for the rezoning to R3 that would allow for a fourplex or something a little bit more dense. But it's their plans are for about that level of redevelopment, a fourplex or sixplex, but not an apartment, as far as I know. That said, the R3 district does allow for that, so the rezoning should consider anything that could be allowable under R3.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor, did you have a question? Councillor Cummings.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you to the planning officer. So you had mentioned that there's no area redevelopment plan for this part of the community. I'm assuming this is just a little bit too far west to be part of the Uptown Olds. Generally speaking, at what age does a neighborhood generally start the process of having a redevelopment plan? This is a relatively older community, I guess, rather than a newer community may have gotten to that stage. So traditionally, in your experience, at what age does a neighborhood start looking at getting a redevelopment plan built out by the community?
Thank you. I have not seen a certain age that would trigger a redevelopment plan being implemented, but as you say, this area of town, still part of the original grid, just west of Uptown, is an older part of town. And I would say that areas of this age quite often are ready, and they are seeing redevelopment happen. And when you start to see infill redevelopment where the original housing stock is being demolished and replaced by newer redevelopment, it would be ideal to have an area redevelopment plan in place to guide that.
Further questions from council? Very good. I then ask the municipal land use planner if he has any final comments. Thank you. I declare the public hearing closed at 1:12 p.m. I'd ask for second reading, please. Councillor Daly.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I move that bylaw 2024-41 be given second reading as presented.
Thank you very much, Councillor Daly. I will now call for the vote. Those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. And third and final reading. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I make the motion that bylaw 2024-41 be given third reading as presented.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. I will call for the vote. Those in favor? That is carried. We will now move down to page 29 in your agenda, please. Item 3C, this is a joint public hearing, and I will proceed right into the public hearing at this time for 2024-42 and 2024-43. I declare the public hearing open at 1:13 p.m. And I'm asking Mr. Sloan, please move forward.
Thank you again. These bylaw amendments propose to rezone a portion of a larger parcel at 5226 53rd Street, which is owned by the town, from recreational facility, the RF district, to C1 central commercial. There is an ongoing subdivision process taking place for this portion of the parcel, and as this building is being subdivided out of the larger parcel that contains other municipal buildings such as the arena, the library, there's a number of buildings there, where the recreational facility district applies to all of them. As this one is being taken out, administration felt it was an appropriate time to rezone the parcel to reflect the actual use of this smaller piece that's being subdivided, which is the location of the ONET building. The bylaw received, or both bylaws received first reading on September 23rd, 2024, and notice of the public hearing was advertised on the website and in the October 29th and November 5th issues of the Albertan. This was circulated to 3 neighboring property owners. No correspondence has been received for or against. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I will then look to the gallery to see if there's any persons wishing to speak to this joint public hearing. I see none. I will move to council members. Councillor Daly.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. Through you to Development Officer Kyle. I noticed in the picture that the right-of-way for 53rd Street is also included in the blue shaded area. Is that an oversight? Are we looking at that right through to the south side of that right-of-way, or are we looking up to the curb side of that piece of property?
Thank you for the question. That right-of-way is included in the subdivision, so it will be part of the subdivided parcel because it's not an official road. So the rezoning would apply to the whole piece. As part of the subdivision, the town is maintaining an access right-of-way so that the town can access the remaining buildings that are on our parcel to the east through there. But the rezoning would technically apply to that. If in the future an official road is established again, then the parcel would cease to have that and the zoning wouldn't apply to that. So right now, if this were to be redeveloped, for instance, it could still only be redeveloped beyond the sidewalk where the current building is. There's no possibility of redevelopment of the entire highlighted blue area in this picture, but the zoning will apply to it.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions? Thank you very much. Any final comments? Thank you very much, Mr. Sloan. I declare the public hearing closed at 1:16 p.m. We move back to page 29, please, and we'll start with 2024-42 for second reading, please. Thank you. Councillor Blatz?
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I move that bylaw 2024-42 be given second reading as presented.
Thank you, Councillor Blatz. Those in favor? That's carried. And third and final reading for 42, Councillor Walsh.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that 2024-42 be given third reading as presented.
Thank you. Those in favor? That's carried. Now moving to 2024-43, Councillor Ryan.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I move the bylaw 2024-43 be given second reading as presented.
Thank you, Councillor Ryan. Those in favor? That's carried. And Councillor Daly for third and final reading.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I move that bylaw 2024-43 be given third reading as presented.
Thank you, Councillor Daly. I call for the vote. Those in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Now I would call attention to page 35, item 3D, please, 2024 Westview Area Structure Plan. And we will move into a public hearing at 1:18 p.m., please, and ask Mr. Sloan to speak. Thank you.
Thank you again. Proposed bylaw 2024-44 proposes to update the Westview Area Structure Plan, originally adopted in 2017. The landowner is looking to begin development of the area and is proposing changes in order to update their plan to align with their new desired concept. The changes proposed for the Westview plan include revised street layout and increased overall residential density. When I say that, the full build-out will have an increase of about 40 residents from the existing 2017 plan, but there is a slight increase in density. The Municipal Development Plan, Policy 10.2 for residential density in new neighborhoods states that the target residential density for new neighborhoods shall be an average that falls between 11 to 13 dwelling units per gross developable hectare. The residential densities that are higher than that target shall be encouraged by the town where there is sufficient capacity in the major municipal infrastructure. And administration believes that there is capacity in this area. The west side of town is generally where the newer infrastructure is in town. And the or the proposed densities are not a concern for administration. This bylaw received first reading on October 15th, 2024, and again was advertised, notice of the public hearing was advertised on the town website and in the October 29th and November 5th issues of the Albertan. It was circulated to relevant provincial agencies, as well as 6 neighboring property owners. No correspondence was received from the property owners. We did have some correspondence from TC Energy, which owns a pipeline right-of-way within the area, which we do we maintain contact with them about all of the developments along their right-of-way, and they have met with the developer directly as well. And that's all I have. I do know that the developer and their consultants are on the line for when it comes time for proponents to speak, but that's all that I have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Would we prefer the developers to speak before I call the gallery if there's anybody to speak? Is there anybody that wishes to speak to this bylaw in the gallery?
Maybe I just look. My name is Ali Shmuri. I'm the civil engineer on the project. I was involved in the doing the servicing concepts for storm sandy water and the stormwater management. I would just like to add one more point to Sloan. The main purpose of us redoing this area structure plan, because the abandonment of the lagoon that was directly south of us, and basically we had the stormwater management in an area that it shouldn't have been in, but we put it there because just to kind of create that buffer from the existing lagoon that was south of us. And as you guys know, that's been abandoned. So that's like the main purpose of us going this other route. That's all I just want to add. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments. I do believe we have a speaker from the gallery. Would you like to approach the podium to speak? I'm going to be asking for those in support to speak. Are you in support? Yes. You'd have to speak you have to speak at the podium, please. State your name, please, and your address.
Lyle Statham of Voles, Alberta.
Are you speaking on yourself, on behalf of someone else or yourself?
Myself. I was curious as to the number of houses or residences being proposed for the area, and the start date and access. From which road will it be coming in, from the west or through the Dave Becker corridor to the east of it?
Thank you. The developer or Mr. Sloan? Here comes Mr. Sloan. Thank you.
Excuse me. Thank you. I can say the access, the earlier phases or the first phases of the proposed redevelopment are on the west side of this, so access from 70th Avenue rather than from the east. As for the number of proposed dwellings, I don't have that in my head, but it is in, this is the right mouse, right? Oh, no, that's the right one. No, it's not. Thank you. Just because I know that the number is stated here, so. So the total dwelling units for the area structure plan would now be 714. 408 of those are low density, and then 306 dwelling units of medium density. As for the start date, I don't know the answer to that. If the developer wishes to answer that or has an idea, then they may, but I don't have an answer to the start date.
Invite the developer to speak if he wishes.
Good afternoon. At this time, we don't have an approximate start date. We wanted to first see the response to this proposed amendment, and then based on that, we'd be able to do further planning. But as far as you can see from the phasing, everything would start, as was mentioned, on the west side off of 70th Avenue.
Thank you very much. Thank you for those comments, sir. I'll ask one more
Thank you.
time for those in support. Seeing none, I'd ask if there's anybody opposed to this development in the gallery. All right, I will now go to comments from council or questions. Councillor Wilson?
Thank you, Mayor Dahl, and certainly for my benefit as well as maybe for the many folks that are tuning in, if the development officer could just confirm, like, for me probably again, kind of what the process is from here. So assuming that this amendment gets approved today for first or second and third reading, what is the process? How does it evolve from here? The developer obviously has indicated they're waiting to see what the outcome is. What role down the road does council continue to play as this progresses towards shovels in the ground, so to speak? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. Council's role, if the proposed amendment is approved, would be limited to future rezonings. The area, or this amendment does not include a land use bylaw amendment to rezone any of the land. So once development is closer to moving forward and that happens, those applications would come back to council. Otherwise, each phase will have a development agreement between the town and the developer, where we would see more detailed engineering drawings, as well as security deposits, because that would be infrastructure that the town will later inherit. So there will be deposits involved for that. Most of that would be on a discussion between administration through Director Pedro and his team on the engineering side and the developer.
Is it supplemental? I have two other councillors for questions.
It is supplemental.
Go ahead.
Thank you. I just wanted to reaffirm, you had mentioned 40-plus units incremental. Did I hear that right? Like plan over from original to now, it's incrementally just 40 additional units?
Thank you. Yeah, the projected population of the development at full build-out is on screen now at 1,939. That is an increase of approximately 40 more residents than the projected population of the existing Westview area structure plan.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go to Councillor Ryan and then to Councillor Walsh.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. Just for curiosity's sake, on the far southeast corner of the map that we see here in yellow, I'm just wondering if is that a future, going to be a future connection to the vistas through that main road that goes through the vistas?
Yes, that's correct. So Vista Drive, which is the main road, the main east-west road through the vistas, will continue on all the way to 70th Avenue. It runs in the proposed plan along the southern boundary of the Westview area structure plan, immediately to the north of the town operations center, and that's where it would continue and meet with 70th Avenue. So as the early phases of Westview are set to begin at the west side, that would be developed first, and then Vista Drive would be completed somewhere in the middle between Vistas and Westview.
Councillor Walsh and then Councillor Blatz.
Thank you, Mayor. I guess it's a two-part question. I'm just curious about the allocation of the municipal reserve. I think it's 10% that's required, and I'm wondering if the stormwater management pond as part of that 10%?
Yeah, I forget the exact calculations, but yeah, the stormwater management pond would be a subdivided parcel that the town would own later on. But the municipal reserve also includes pedestrian and cycling trails, and there are a number of those proposed within the land use concept that we would also be taking. That we take the 10% municipal reserve at the time of subdivision.
Councillor Blatz?
Thank you, Mayor Dolan, through you to Mr. Sloan, and I apologize if this is not the appropriate time to ask for clarification on this, but when we look at the municipal servicing, and it says that all sewer facilities, water and stormwater would be designed in accordance to the Town of Olds minimum standards for development. So I'm assuming then that we would be inspecting those ourselves along with our engineering firms to proceed with the development. And the only reason why I'm asking this question is in light of all of the issues that we have had in the past, and just want to ensure that we are in fact going to be on top of this situation.
That's right. I can answer a bit, but I might pass it on to Director Pedro as well. But at each phase of the development, when we do a development agreement, we'll get detailed design drawings of the engineering at that point. Once it is completed, there is a 2-year warranty period where it is, I guess, warranted by the developer and their consultants for us, but it is inspected before the town takes over that infrastructure.
Deputy Mayor Cummings?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So, during first reading, I did ask a question about the location of the pond here and the concern I had with the lift station and the scenarios we've been seeing over the last couple of years with our lift station and the proximity of that storm drain or storm pond. I just want to make sure that we have that in sight, that is a concern, that we've flooded that particular area a couple of times with sewage over the last couple of years. And I know we're doing a lot of work to mitigate that from ever happening again, but it is a concern I have. So I know that's not a question I'm asking. I just want to raise that issue during this public hearing, that is a concern and that we should keep our eye on that moving forward.
Thank you. I do recall our CAO did speak to that. Director Pedro, would you like to add to that?
Sure. No, I think it's certainly a valid concern. The issue that presents itself is really the timing of this stormwater pond being developed versus any sort of SRD overflow lagoon system. So essentially when this gets into detailed engineering, we would consider what that future SRD potential lagoon looks like. But of course the two can't interact. That wouldn't be allowed by Alberta Environment, so that would be a consideration for sure.
Thank you for your questions. Are there any further? Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. Through you to perhaps the folks on the line. If I remember from reading, I believe the developer Indus Homes in Calgary, if maybe one of the folks on the line could just talk a little bit about their company, their background, their history, and similar type developments that they've been involved with, whether it be in rural Alberta or in the city of Calgary or beyond. Thank you.
How relevant is that? Sorry, how relevant? Oh, go ahead.
It's Ali. I just want to add something to in regards to the stormwater management and the flooding that's happening. Maybe I'm not too familiar with the flooding that happened to the lift station, but I do know the natural topography of the land kind of goes out to that lift station, to the sanitary lift station. And the new location, in my opinion, the sooner we get in there, it's actually best, because then you're capturing the water, into the stormwater management, and you're releasing it down right at the far south end of the property. So in a way, the new location of the stormwater management will help with the flooding. So to capture water from storm events and things like that. So I would say it would make it better. Does that make sense? And in terms of speaking about the company and stuff like that, maybe Omar would like to speak with regards to that in those homes. Thank you.
I don't think that's relevant to the public hearing, but thank you for your offer, sir.
No problem.
Very good. Are there any further questions for our municipal planner? Very good. I see none. I will now declare the public hearing closed at 1:35 p.m. And direct council members back, please, to page 35 for second reading, please. Councillor Blatz.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I move that bylaw 2024-44 be given second reading as presented.
Thank you, Councillor Blatz. Those in favor? That's carried. And Councillor Ryan, third and final reading.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I move that bylaw 2024-44 be given third reading as presented.
Thank you, Councillor Ryan. I will call for the vote. Those in favor? Thank you. And I thank you very much for being online with us today. To the developer and any gallery members, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We will move down to page 54, please, Council, item 3E, and this is a bylaw 2024-45 for an advertising bylaw. And Acting CEO Linderman will speak to that.
Thank you, Mayor. So today we're bringing forward an advertising bylaw for council consideration. Having this advertising bylaw will allow greater flexibility in how we comply with statutory advertising requirements. Having this bylaw will allow for alternative forms of advertising such as social media and our website, while still meeting the requirements of Section 606 of the MGA. While there are no plans to change our current scope of advertising, such as newspaper, this does just allow us that little bit more flexibility should we need to. With this bylaw, we would also need to amend our current land use bylaw to ensure consistency across both. So for today, we're looking for first reading and to set a public hearing date for December 9th.
Thank you very much for that information. Okay, as we are just setting first reading today for the advertising bylaw and land use bylaw, I will call on a request for first reading. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I make the motion that council give first reading to advertising bylaw 2024-45 as presented.
Thank you. I understand that the public hearing will be set for December 9th. We're getting to that motion, and I do see some gallery members there that were just visiting us today just to make sure that they heard the information from council, and we'll see them at the public hearing and invite to send any questions to council. So we have first reading on the floor from Councillor Wilson. Those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Now we're going to give first reading to Land Use Bylaw Amendment 2024-47 as presented. Did you need to speak to that? No, go ahead. We'll go ahead. Councillor Blatz?
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I move that council give first reading to land use bylaw amendment 2024-47 as presented.
Thank you, Councillor Blatz. Call the vote. Those in favor? That's carried. And I would like a motion to set a public hearing date. Councillor Daly.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I move that council set Monday, December 9th, 2024 at 1 p.m. in council chambers as the date, time, and place for a joint public hearing on bylaws 2024-45 and 2024-47.
Thank you very much, Councillor Daly. I will now call the vote. Those in favor? That's carried. And thank you to any members that were here today to hear and participate in this. We're going to move down to new business now, please. Page 59 of your agenda. Development permit, and it's item 4A. And who will be speaking to that? All right.
We have our development officer, Nathan Hill, here to speak to this one.
Thank you. Welcome, Nathan.
Thank you very much. So now we have a development permit application for an office building with a freestanding sign, 2 fascia signs, and various variances. On this application before you today, because there's multiple variances over 15%, and offices are discretionary use. The application's intended to be used as an accountant's building with potential for different uses in the future. The first variance is a rear yard variance of 6 meters to 3.05 meters to facilitate additional space towards the front of the building. The applicant has also requested a variance from the easternmost driveway, which I would note is existing. I'm allowing the driveway to be over 10 meters to 12.24 meters. And lastly, the applicant has requested a variance of the maximum or of a minimum number of parking stalls from 24 to 20, including 2 barrier-free parking stalls and 3 small car parking stalls with minor variances under 15%. The applicant has requested a variance instead of cash in lieu, as detailed in attachment 7 by the applicant. And I would note the applicant's engineer is also here if council has any questions to at point. That said, administration has recommended cash in lieu instead of a variance, as council recently approved land use bylaw amendment authorizing cash in lieu in this area. So I think that's my baseline there.
Thank you very much. I'll just call on my council at this time to see if they have any questions. Thank you. Questions to the development permit? No, we've got all the information, and it's nice to see the cash in lieu for parking stalls being introduced so that some developers can use that. If that's the case, I'll call for a motion for the development permit. Councillor Ryan.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I move that council approve development permit application DP 24-167 as presented, subject to the conditions listed in the attached draft development permit.
Thank you, Councillor Ryan, and thank you very much, Nathan. Mr. Hill. I'll call for the vote. Those in favor? That's carried. Very good. And page 101, please, item 4B, this development permit, DP 24-184, 6215 Douglas Place. Are you speaking to that, Mr. Hill? Thank you. Go ahead.
All right. This application is for an existing accessory building. It was located 0.57 meters off of the property line. Our setback's a meter. So because it's a variance of over 15%, it's here in front of you today. So.
Thank you. I'll open the floor for council if you have any questions. Start with Councillor Daly.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. Through you to Development Officer Hill. Is this accessory building, is it a permanent structure? Is it built on skids or is it on concrete? Do we know that?
I've not inspected the property, and it's not specified on the RPR, so I don't know.
I'm just wondering, because we've seen so many of these accessory buildings, garden sheds as such, coming forward, probably at the time that the property is being listed or put up for sale, and so then to comply with their real property report in our bylaws, then of course they're coming here for work. I'm wondering if this is the time that we look at that bylaw and maybe have a look at these temporary buildings, whether they do have to come here and make some changes so that it's a discretionary use of yourselves as well. Just a suggestion.
I believe this is an area that we're going to be having a look at in our land use bylaw updates.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the question, Councillor Daly, and the response, Mr. Hill. If there's nothing further, I'd look for a motion, please. Councillor Blatz.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I move that DP 24-184-6215 Douglas Place, existing accessory building with a variance from side property line be approved, subject to the conditions listed in the draft development permit.
Yes, thank you, and you've highlighted them, so thank you for doing that as well, Nathan. Okay, if there's no further questions, I'll call for the vote. Those in favor? That's carried. We'll move down to page 111, please, in your agenda, item 4C. And this is Councillor Wilson had asked for a notice of motion for franchise fees, and it's stated right in the motion. Would you like to make that motion to get it on the floor, Councillor Wilson?
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. Yes, I make the motion that council accept Councillor Wilson's, notice of motion as presented, and direct the Chief Administrative Officer to prepare a letter for mayor's signature as noted in the notice of motion.
Yes, and that letter for advocacy will be to Minister of Affordability and Utilities Minister Nathan Neudorf. Very good. Are there any further questions? Councillor Daly, and then Councillor Ryan.
And thank you, Mayor Dahl, through you to Councillor Wilson. What, in the end, are you expecting as an outcome from this letter that we may or may not send?
Well, as indicated in the notice of motion, and looking at it in hindsight, it has less to do with franchise fees and more to do with electrical costs, and specifically distribution and transmission charges. This has been a hot topic of debate for quite some time. It is in the minister's mandate letter from the premier going back, I think, to 2023. There have been some minor tweaks to the whole electrical and electricity structure and charge outs, such as changing from the regulated rate option to the rate of last resort. But really, I'm sure, as most people know, when you look at your utility statement for electrical charges, the cost of the commodity relative to the cost of the grid charges, the transmission and distribution charges, is quite small. It is the distribution charges that are squeezing residents and businesses, and specifically rural residents, rural businesses pay an unfair share of those costs relative to the urban markets. So this would just look to redistribute those costs across perhaps all Albertans, and certainly improve affordability and improve competitiveness for our businesses.
Thank you. Just for the viewers, and then we'll go to Councillor Ryan. It also states in the background, it's regarding rural electrical transmission and distribution charges and the urgency to address the inequity between rural and urban concerning the two delivery charges. So you stated that very well. Councillor Ryan?
Thank you, Mayor Dolan. This is not really a question, but a comment, and the fact that I can support this simply because as we all know from our council conferences that we do, this was a resolution that was passed by AMA for the government to look into this. The RMA just had a resolution brought forward last week, the conference that myself, Councillor Cummings, and Mayor Dahl attended, and it was, it's something that is a pressing issue for rural Alberta. I believe the minister even responded during a session there that he was looking into this. As well, I can speak to the Alberta Municipalities Infrastructure Committee that I sit on, that this has been an item that we've also addressed. So it's nothing new, but I think any letter that we provide continues to show our support for this kind of an advocacy, and I think that everything helps for this issue. So I would support going forward with the letter. Thank you.
Thank you. It was definitely a conversation on the rural municipalities floor. Councillor Blatz?
Thank you, Mayor Dahl, and I concur with the comments made by Councillor Ryan. This has been brought up before at both of our conferences, and it is something that I believe the ministry does need to be aware of, and follow-up letters certainly are the best process. Just one point of clarification perhaps is where it states bolded in yellow, I would like to request the Town of Old Administration. I believe that should say the Town of Old CAO. And because he is the person that we are directing.
Yes, thank you. I do believe CO Williams did speak to us in a past meeting as well, so thank you very much for that. If there's no further comments, we have a motion on the floor. And from Councillor Wilson, I'll call for the vote. Those in favor? That's carried. Thank you for that. We will now go to page 115, item 4D of your agenda. This is for policy review. Excuse me, winter road maintenance. Acting CO Lindeman?
I will ask Director Pedro to speak to these items.
Good afternoon, Council. So we have before you actually two policies for review and acceptance. Policy 502C, that's our winter road maintenance policy. We have attached the procedure as well for information. Biggest change on the 502C and P is essentially the activation levels. So through multiple discussions over the last year, we've certainly increased all the activation levels. And so we will be looking at implementing those this upcoming winter season. And on policy 702C, the biggest change there is that we decided to remove the development security amounts from the fee bylaw and actually included them in this council policy. And the significant change there was that we revised our calculation for development securities on commercial, industrial, institutional, recreational, and R3 developments. This was primarily done to lessen the burden on those types of developments, as our previous number was quite high. So the revised calculation certainly lessens that burden while balancing the town's risk for those developments. So we're still comfortable that we can cover any sort of loss that could be incurred by the town due to a development. So biggest change on that one. And I will be happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Director Pedro. We'll start with Councillor Blatz.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl, and through you to Director Pedro. And just for clarification for our viewers that could be listening, so with policy 502C, winter road maintenance, we will still be doing road maintenance, but we have just changed the level of which we will react to it, correct?
That's correct, yes.
Okay, thank you, because there's been some social media that states we are no longer going to do snow removal, and I just think that people need to be aware that we will continue to do so, but there will be a different standard upon which we'll react.
Very good. Any further questions for Director Pedro? Councillor Wilson?
Thank you, Mayor Dahl, through you to the director. Just to reaffirm, within the reading, I believe I saw it, but these development security amounts, policy 702C, they will be done on a case-by-case basis, right? Such that if there is no need for the security amount, that doesn't require it to be levied, assessed. Is that correct?
There would be some latitude there. Largely, if the development is adjacent to a town road, there would be some sort of security amount levied, but it would be greatly reduced compared to previously.
Thank you for that. Correspondence together. No further questions? I'd entertain two separate motions, one for 502C first. Yeah, Deputy Mayor Cummings?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move that council accepts and approves policy 502C, winter road maintenance, as presented.
Thank you. Those in favor? That's carried. And 702C. Councillor Walsh.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that council accepts and approves policy 702C, development security, as presented.
Thank you, Councillor Walsh. Those in favor? That is carried. Thank you. If you would move to page 141, please, of your agenda, item 4E, Mountain View County appointments for the Olds Municipal Library. And I'll start with number 1, please, for Councillor Jennifer Lutz. Councillor Ryan.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I move that council appoints Councillor Jennifer Lutz to the Olds Municipal Library Board, OML, for a term of 1 year, starting October 28, 2024, and expiring on October 27, 2025.
Thank you, Councillor Ryan. Those in favor? That's carried. And Deputy Mayor Cummings for the second appointment for Jennifer Lutz for Economic Development.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move that council appoints Councillor Jennifer Lutz to the Economic Development Action Committee, EDAC, for a term of 1 year, starting October 28, 2024, and expiring on October 27, 2025.
Thank you. I will call for the vote. Those in favor? That is carried. We're moving down to page 143, item 4F, Canada's Rural Transit Solutions Fund approval. Did you need to speak to this? Go ahead.
Thank you. We have received a $50,000 grant from Infrastructure Canada's Rural Transit Solutions Fund. This is a fully funded grant that will be used to hire a consultant who will conduct an assessment of our current transportation needs and recommend options for our community. Today, we need a motion confirming that we have met all the requirements of the fund agreement and that the CAO can execute this agreement on behalf of the town.
That's wonderful to hear. I'd like to have a motion on the floor, please. Councillor Daly.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I move that council confirms the town meets all requirements of the Infrastructure Canada Rural Transit Solutions Funds Agreement and that the Chief Administrative Officer can be authorized to execute the agreement on behalf of the town of Olds.
Very good, thank you. Any further questions? I'll call for the vote. Those in favor? That's carried. Moving down to page 148, please, of your agenda. This is Olds Fiber Limited finalization. Acting CEO Lindeman.
Thank you. As council is aware, a public information session was held on November 5th presenting the material changes to Olds Fiber with the sale of shares to the town of by the town of Olds to TELUS Communications. The shareholder report on this information session forms a part of this agenda and is posted on our website for information. Today, we're looking for a motion from council to accept this report for information, as well as to formally accept the share purchase and debt forgiveness agreements that have been previously shared with council but not included in this agenda.
Thank you very much, Sheena. And we will have two separate motions. Okay, we've got immediate work. Okay, we'll start with Councillor Blatz, please.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I move that council move to accept the shareholder report on the public input session held November 5th, 2024, regarding the sale of OFL Limited to TELUS Communications for information.
Thank you very much, Councillor Blatz. Any further questions from anyone before I call the vote? Those in favor? That's carried. And Councillor Wilson, you had your hand up.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I make the motion that council accepts the share purchase agreement and debt forgiveness agreement as presented.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. I now call for the vote. Those in favor? That is carried. Our final item on our agenda is correspondence and information, page 214, please. I'll get a motion on the floor, please, before we speak to any of these. Who would like to make that motion? Councillor Ryan.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I move the correspondence and information report ending November 12, 2024 be received for information.
Thank you. Does council have any questions with regard to any of the correspondence, A, B, C, or D? Councillor Ryan.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I just was wondering about the Alberta municipalities, the outstanding resolutions, and our course of action, whether we would do, if there's a couple of things, the webinar or just send a letter in. What is your feeling on the process?
Thank you for that. I do know our CAO had some thoughts on that. Perhaps Sheena can help us out. Director Lindeman?
Yes, so I think it's up to each individual counselor on how you choose to submit. So you can do that in writing or at the webinar, and you just do that individually, not as a council.
Thank you. I just wanted to make sure that that was the way.
Thank you for that question, Councillor Ryan. Any further questions? Councillor Ryan?
Sorry, Mayor Dahl, on page 233, we're being asked to, with regards to this letter here, I believe we suggest we write, in response to this, I think we should write letters on both items and provide an estimate on the costs associated with the counting of votes. And with, I know that we've had discussions already about this issue, about going from electronic voting to counting votes. And even though, you know, the bill has, I think it's been passed, I believe it has, yes. I still think that we should continue to advocate or, you know, on this issue, in particular how much money is being downloaded onto the community. And I think our residents should be made aware of how much money this is going to cost us just to do this. I do think that we need to respond, and I think the suggestion by the Alberta municipalities to write a letter to the Premier is something that we should think about doing.
Thank you very much. I would have to say I concur to that. I don't know if our legislative clerk that will be helping in that area has any idea of what the cost, or our acting CEO today. Would you be able to speak to any of this?
I can't speak to cost today, but we can definitely have a motion, maybe directing administration to bring those costs forward.
Yes, I'd like to. Oh, would you like to speak to that? Yes, Marcy, go ahead.
Thank you, through the chair. So next meeting, November 25th, I'm working with the CAO to bring, I guess, a PowerPoint on Bill 20 and what we're anticipating. We will absolutely have no true idea of cost until the election is over, because I won't know what it's going to cost us to count until I'm done counting, really and truly. I can guess. We've got numbers, they're in the budget, but at the same point, until it truly dust settles, I don't know where we're truly going to end up, because we will need extra help for resources to fill in the requirements from the new bill.
Thank you for that, Marcy. Councillor Blatz?
Thank you, Mayor Dolan, and through you, perhaps me, to our legislative clerk. I agree with you on that, but I still think that we need to reaffirm with the province and CC the people here that it is going to be an additional cost that we are going to bear, and each municipality. And you think of, I think the estimated costs in the cities are hundreds of thousands of dollars. And so, you know, putting it into perspective, it's going to cost us money when we already had a process in place that worked, and it wasn't as costly, nearly as costly. So I still think that administration, we will have to request this after maybe November 25th, but we need to follow through with this.
Been a lot of speculation on both sides of the floor at any conference I've been to within the last 6 months, and some of the comments were, well, we'll bill the province back for those costs, but of course, how does a person do that? But I do agree that a letter still might help, but I'll leave that in the hands of our acting CEO at this current time, and she can bring that back to our CEO Williams when he's back, and they can speak to it and get back to us, and we can definitely draft something. Yes, Deputy Mayor Cummings.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. On the same letter, since the majority of the letter is actually about the GPOT, I'm wondering if we could get, at some point in time, maybe ask the CAO or acting CAO to provide us a similar type table as that's in that letter for the town of Olds. And in a recent conversation I had with the CAO, we confirmed that the province is our largest employer in the area, and there's a lot of provincial properties in this town that are not any longer being taxed. So that implication, as exampled in this letter, must be significant. I'm not sure how much that is. So I would rather see a resolution today asking for a similar data table as we have here from the city, from the town of Whitecourt that's in that letter. Not too sure how to word that a little bit finer, but I'm pretty sure that's something that can be provided by administration to give us an idea of the loss of funding from the GPOT reduction. As for the other issue, I'm confident, really confident the province knows that there's going to be an added cost to the elections because of tabulations. And I think a letter might be better suited when we have actual numbers to present to them, how much that is rather than an estimate. They're fully aware that it's going to cost more money. So getting a letter sent out without actual numbers might be a little preemptive. But I would like to see a motion asking for the information for the GPOT loss be presented to council. Yeah, if that motion works, just like I've said it there.
You've just put a motion on the floor. Go ahead.
No, I don't have a motion on the floor.
Okay, one moment, please, and we'll go ahead and speak to that,
Can
please.
I recommend a motion? Yes.
We are currently
yeah.
in a motion, so we can't put another motion forward.
But
So
I can recommend something for you guys. So to direct administration to prepare annually during the operating budget an estimate of provincial downloading costs, probably carbon tax as well, for council's consideration and to submit as per AB Muni's request.
Thank you for that. Okay, we'll just deal with the motion on the floor we've got now. Councillor Ryan, you had a question?
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. Actually, just more of a comment. I did say in my opening remark that I wanted letters on both issues, so thank you for addressing the other one. But I do agree that we do need to advocate for both items in letters to the ministers or to the premier or both. So something that we can certainly discuss at our November 25th meeting when that report that legislative clerk has mentioned will come to council.
Thank you for those comments. We have a motion on the floor right now from Councillor Ryan to accept the information. If there's nothing further, then I'll call for that vote. Those in favor? That's carried. Now your opportunity to speak. Thank you.
thank you, Madam Mayor. Having not written down that well-crafted motion by that Director Lindeman wrote out, I will move the motion as presented by Director Lindeman.
Would you like me to read it again?
If you could, please.
We'll read
Thank
it.
you.
We'll put it on the floor. Thank you.
The council direct administration to prepare annually during operating budget an estimate of provincial downloading costs, including carbon tax, for council's consideration and to submit as per Alberta Muni's request.
Thank you. Councillor Cummings?
Thank you. I just changed administration to CAO as per
That's
our
correct.
current policy.
That's
And
correct.
then that's the motion I would put on the floor.
Thank you. Any further questions to the motion? I'll call the vote. Those in favor? That's carried. Well done, folks. There's nothing further to our agenda. So at this time, I adjourn the meeting at 2:08 p.m. And thank you for coming, to the gallery members, the media, and Mr. Elliott. Thank you.